here's a clear picture of the languages of Philippine works, to which Philippine works are being translated. So English, you have about 600 titles. I mentioned earlier German, so there's also Spanish, which I missed earlier, Italian, French, and Russian, and Japanese. These are the huge chunk to which works have been translated. Uh, for European languages, you have the Balkans, you have the Nordic, you have the Scandinavian, and for you have a chunk also in Southeast Asia. You have books in Malay, Thai, Vietnamese, and in India, you have Kannada, Tamil, Telugu, Bangla, Nepali, Marathi, Sinhala, Gujarati, Hindi, and Urdu. So there's a lot. Next slide, please. Page up.
622.
For countries, of course, Germany, France, Spain, and Italy. But of course, the huge chunk will be coming from the Philippines and Japan. But back lang daw. And again, this is a breakdown of all the countries. Some are translated as like Yugoslavia, you only have one. But again, I have to note that the timeline would indicate when these countries existed. Like Yugoslavia existed in 1980 to 1922. It eventually separated into several republics. So based on the time of the publication, we count. That's where the countries are being counted. Like USSR was counted from 1922 to 1991. Eventually, it broke down to several states, and eventually each would have their own entry in the database. Next slide po. So there you go, a clear picture. So the 145, we have a clear picture of the Arabic-speaking countries. So that's Egypt, Algeria, and this one is the Francophone and Anglo-African area. 1,060 European, 85 for Latin America, and that's the rest of the world. Next slide, ito na yung ano. This is the next slide, please. These are the most translated authors. So the most translated, as I mentioned earlier, is Melissa de la Cruz. So she writes young adult fiction, fantasy. She does vampire stories and you also have Jose Rizal is next. Next is Roshni Chokshi. She's half Filipino, half Indian, was based in the US. This is Roshni Chokshi. And you have Olivia Blake. She's based in the UK. She also does young adult fiction. That's Olivia Blake. And next to Olivia Blake is F. Chanel Jose. With most of the Rosales translated. Rosales Saga translated to about 7 languages. You also have Mary Ann Ordinario. She's based in Mindanao. She's a children's book writer. And Benedict Anderson, I mentioned earlier that I have also included Filipinist who's been doing a lot of work in the Philippines. Erin Entrada Kelly, who also does young adult section. This is Erin Entrada Kelly. Jennifer Hillier, this is Jennifer Hillier. Antonio Picapeta, because of the Magellan's Voyage. You have a lot of translations of Magellan's Voyage. Walden Bello, whose roots is from Ilocos Sur and Ilocos Norte. So it's also been widely translated. And Samantha Soto Yambao is based in Makati, Nick Joaquin, Cecilia Manguera Bernardo is based in California, and Jose Maria Sison. Lipunan at Revolution Filipino has been translated into several languages. Philippine Society and Revolution, PSR. Carlos P. Romulo and the Luna brothers. This is Jonathan and Joshua Luna. They did a lot of comic books and they also did translated to various languages. Next slide, please. So, who are the Ilocano and Ilocano link writers who are in translation? So, of course, We have Isabel de los Reyes. A lot of his work were translated
Ayun
from
si Sherma.
Spanish to English. And he also did a
Si Sher.
translation, if I'm not mistaken,
Si Roy.
he did a translation of Yan de Lamang to Spanish, Vida de Lamang. Carlos Bulosan, who writes in English, who also identifies as Ilocano, is included in this list. This is a young photo of
Sionel
a
Jose.
very young Epshon Jose.
Ang bata naman niya.
And this is Manuel Arguilla, who also writes in English. 1933 photo, AI modified photo of the 1933 photo. And you also have Rene Abiva from Nueva Vizcaya. Benjamin Pimentel, who's also based in the US, but he writes in English, who also identifies as Ilocano. Belinda Aquino, if you're familiar with Philippine studies in Hawaii.
Ay, Ilocano pala siya.
She established Philippine studies in Hawaii.
Ilocano gaya misuna eh.
In University of Hawaii. On the upper part, you have Leopoldo Llaves and Walden Bello.
Pwede.
And the last three here, you have Roy Aragon. Sherman. Recently, the third one is Elaine Castillo, who's based in the US. And she also writes in English, but I also identify as Ilocano.
With a lot of Ilocano words.
With a lot of Ilocano words. I'm going to show you the books later. Next slide, please. So these are the books which got translated directly from Ilocano to foreign language. So from Ilocano, mostly from Ilocano to English. So you have Ilocano Harvest, which was published by New Day in the 1990s.
Lucky dun.
And you have Linka, which was also published in 1990s. The other one is a children's book. It's a children's picture book translated from Ilocano and Kankanay to Korean. And the next to the children's book is Cascade, which was edited and translated by Sherman Benosa. The other two are poetry books published in the US, and Tawid Ken Ruknoy is published in the US by Francisco Lapar and translated by Norma Hennessy. And the last book is by Rene Abiva, translated by Ivan Emil Labay. Next slide, please.
Ayan.
Pwede pong bumalik doon sa Canva kasi old pala yung old yung naka-upload. Anyway, so basically, one concern, let's go back to the Canva. So these are books which were originally in English but eventually translated to German. The Junge aus Ilocos. It's a coming of age story of a young boy growing up in Ilocos by Blaise Kaposkos. And you have Isabella, which talks about
Seven.
a different perspective of the movement, of the communist movement in Isabella, written by Kaisa Aquino. And if you're curious how Kaisa got his name, it's a combination of Cagayan and Isabella. It's been translated to French and Albanian. And the other book is by Elaine Castillo, America is Not the Heart, which has been translated to Spanish, Italian, and I forgot which language is the third one. And Carlos Bulosan translated into Dutch. America is it in half. Next slide. You also have books by Ilocano writers writing in English translated into foreign languages. So Benjamin Pimentel, this was originally in Filipino, mga guerrilla sa Powell Street, which now had its English translation, the guerrillas of Powell Street. You have Ray Ventura, who grew up in Jones, Isabela, underground in Japan, which is translated to Japanese, and Epshon Jose, Mas, Kotayang meant sabar, translated into Malay, and again, also another F. Shanilose, my brother, my executioner, mi hermano, mi enemigo. And domination by Walden Bello, translated into French. Next slide, please. So, one concern in international translation, it has to go, if it's not in English, it has to go to another bridge language. So the bridge language is usually English. And since most of our books in the Philippines are like 70% in English, we don't have to go through that bridge. But if our works are in Ilocano, we have very limited translators from Ilocano to other foreign languages. It has to go through that bridge language, which is English. So, what are the implications of having English as a bridge language? So you have a wider reach, but again, you have the risk of also second level distortion of the translation. So since translators would be using English to translate the work to another foreign language. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Like, if you're familiar with Gabriel Garcia's Cien Años de Soledad, which is originally in Spanish, most of the world translations came from Gregory Rabasa's English translation of 100 Years of Solitude. So most came out from that Gregory Rabasa translation. Next slide, please. Contemporary translation. So, kailangan ko ng script. So today we are seeing increased attention to regional writers. Most translators are working across Philippine languages. Institutions and independent initiatives are growing. There is a momentum, but it is uneven. Certain themes travel better across languages, like, for example, colonial history, migration and diaspora, identity and memory, and social justice. These themes resonate globally. There's universality, and universality increases translatability. Next slide, please. So there are also, we now talk about the global market. So there are three types of publishers, foreign publishers who are looking for works to be translated. The first are the major publishers. These are publishers which are prioritizing on high quality titles. And it's not a concern, the translation grant would not be a concern. So for as long as your work, they consider your work as a high quality material, then they would take on that work. They would take on translating that work. We also have medium-sized publishers. These are publishers who prefer to discover strong, well-written books and publish them with the help of translation grants. So they would rely partly on a grant for your work to be translated, but these are usually independent publishers who are looking for new, fresh ideas from outside of their country. And lastly, there are publishers who are mainly looking for funding opportunities. So these are publishers who are only interested in titles they can publish if they receive a grant support. And they're usually looking for a book with a small word count and a book which is slim and which can classify for a translation grant. Next slide, please. We talk about the global markets. I think, balik po tayo dito sa PDF. There are two types of market. There are two types of publishing market. Of course, one is open and the other one is closed. So the closed market are United Kingdom, Australia, and India, meaning closed markets that books circulate only on a certain, these are English language countries, and they only circulate within their territory. So like English Indian books cannot be sold in UK and US, and UK books cannot be sold in the US territories. So, and as far as I know, for the longest time, the Philippines is still part of the US territory. That's why you have very little books from the UK coming into the Philippines. If you remember, if some of you have read the Harry Potter book, It's the US edition that comes here, not the British edition. So all our books
Yeah.
here are US edition mostly, like 90%. And when Harry Potter 5 was released, there was this big bookshop in Manila who brought in like copies from the UK, and the other bookshop sued that bookshop because you cannot sell UK copies in the Philippines. You only need to sell US copies in the Philippines. So that's the closed
Sydney
market.
Library.
And we are, since we are attached to the US, we're part of that closed market. Next slide. The open market, on the other hand, is that where books can exchange freely. Like in Asia, most of the countries in Asia, like in Thailand, you can bring in UK books, you can also bring in US books. And you can also bring Indian books as well. So these are areas where books circulate freely. Same also with Middle East, Latin America, and Europe. Next slide. So let's now talk about why the Ilocano translation, why Ilocano translation struggles in an open market.
Dominance of English.
So basically, there are key issues. One is that the open market is dominated by English language books. Second is that translation can be costly and risky. So you have to be strong enough to risk the work doing translation. Number three, there are very few translators doing work on translation. And number four, there's a visibility, there's a limited translator. For number five, there's a visibility issue. And of course, number six is also similar to with number one. There's a huge competition within the open market. Next slide, please. So we talk about the risk, and now we talk about the opportunities for Ilocano translation. So despite these challenges, there are still opportunities. There are translation grants available, and the Philippine government provides grants for those who wish to translate from Ilocano to either local language, another local language, or to foreign language. There's also the digital platform, which is cheaper compared to the physical platform. So you can do like a digital platform, you can sell on Amazon, and there's also the self-publishing option, which again, in a way, can be a lot more easier, a lot faster to publish, and also there's the use of AI tools. So we can, in the international publishing community, AI is let me rephrase that. The international publishing community uses AI a lot to assist them in their day-to-day transactions. So from editorial to marketing and promotions to looking for markets for the books. So they use AI a lot. And AI can help in promoting translations as well. There's also an AI tool for translation. It's called Dap-ayan. And a lot of international publishers use Dap-ayan to translate from a language which is not very common into English or into a large-scale language. This has been used to translate a lot of words from Slovenian to German and English. Dap-ayan. But then after doing the translation work by Dap-ayan, a human, an editor, still needs to review the output of the AI. It's not that you accept immediately what's been produced by the AI. Next slide, please.
Self-audition.
Next slide.
Turog sa mutan.
So what's the future for Ilocano
Jay.
translation?
Hidalgo translation.
Okay na. Sige.
There needs to be
Yeah.
more
Request,
translation
i-assign na king ka.
initiatives.
Okay
Eric
lang.
talked
You
about-
tell them. Yeah.
Hindi mo na kabiyala. So na mag-communicate.
Mabalin niyo mo ting i-request. Mabalin nga ni Kasto iti mga
So,
i-request Jay.
previous slide, please. Pakiback
Kasi
po.
nalala yung damot namin dito. Pero gawin mo to, farm out lang naman outside Chabdalchay sa ngayon.
The
So,
future
they
of
have to pay
Ilocano
me additional
translations. So
price
there
for
needs to be more
additional
translation initiatives. Like I
additional
mentioned
expense
yesterday,
kami.
that there needs to be a structure. So it's not just individual initiatives. There has to be a strong mechanism, a strong structure that would support translations. There needs to be a bigger collaboration among writers and translators, especially those who can translate directly from Ilocano. And we also need a huge support from institutions. So that means from the organization itself, Gumil Filipinas, and from universities. And also from publishers, of course, since they will be the ones who will be publishing the books. Next slide, please. So this is a question I've always been asking. Is there enough discussion in the global publishing about Philippine authorship, Philippines in general, Philippine authorship and translation? This is a question I've asked like 5 years ago before the pandemic, and this is also a question I've asked when when Philippines signed the Guest of Honor contract in 2023. Well, the answer is I still don't have a strong answer for this one. There had been an increase in translation over the years, especially when the Philippines signed the agreement in 2023 with the Guest of Honor program, since the government provided a bigger fund for translation. So in the past, the fund for translation was like 2 million annually. But when the Philippines signed the contract for the Guest of Honor project, it increased from 2 million to 18 million annually. So 2024, the Philippines had 18 million in budget for translation. 2025, it had, I think, if I'm not mistaken, it had 15 million pesos for the budget for translation budget, and 2026, I think there's still like 12 million for this year for translation initiatives. So that's still a huge one compared to when the translation program started with only a very small amount of 2 million pesos in funds for translation. So this is a huge opportunity which I hope it can be accessed by most of the writers here, most of the translators who are here with us this morning.